By the 70s, the old studio playbook was falling apart. Desperate executives just needed teenagers in seats, so they handed real budgets to underground directors. These 10 outrageous films actually made it into cinemas. By the mid-70s, this kind of film had turned into a repeatable formula, and Adventures of a Taxi Driver sits right in the middle of it. By 1976, the structure was locked in. Take a working-class job title, load it with innuendo, shoot it fast, keep it cheap, get it into cinemas. It also lines up with the mood in Britain at the time, where humor leaned more working-class and more direct.
I'll say this for Tom, he certainly knows how to pick 'em. I mean, he's obviously a bit of class, probably an air hostess or something like that.
This is Nikki. She's a stripper. Well, it can't always be right, can you?
The story is simple. A London cab driver drifting from one encounter to the next, built around who gets in the back seat and what follows. Made on a tight budget, but the audience showed up. In the UK, it even managed to outgross Scorsese's Taxi Driver on release, finishing as the 19th highest grossing film of 1976, while Taxi Driver didn't make the top 20. That tells you how strong this market had become. The humor is broad and obvious, and it sticks to that lane. What started off as slightly risky had turned into something reliable. British cinema had figured out that cheeky, low-budget adult comedies could consistently make money.
We are not permitted to show you nudity in the following material. However, when you see the actual film, you will see some very, very funny nude sequences.
The 1970s really did try everything, and the first Nudie musical, from 1976, feels like something that could only exist in that moment. On paper, it sounds ridiculous. A lewd spoof of bright, wholesome 1930s Hollywood musicals, packed with nudity and innuendo, dragging the old studio dream straight into the gutter. The creators grabbed those squeaky clean Golden Age dance routines and pulled them right into the dirt. It started as a tiny independent film, shot on a shoestring, then somehow ended up with Paramount handling distribution, which says a lot about how wide open the decade had become. This isn't just a strange comedy. It shows how far the rules had loosened, where even a film built around a dirty joke could reach mainstream cinemas.
Are you willing to perform in the nude?
Well, sure. As long as I don't have to take my clothes off.
And when its run ended, it didn't disappear. Cable and VHS gave it a second life, turning it into one of those late-night discoveries people never forgot. 3 years before network television figured out Saturday Night Live, an underground video group was already tearing broadcast media apart with the Groove Tube. Ken Shapiro took a New York stage show, shot a batch of sketches on cheap early videotape equipment, and blew that rough footage up for the big screen. Executives had absolutely no idea what to do with a roughly $400,000 project that went on to pull in around $9 million at the box office, a genuine surprise hit. The whole thing plays like an unfiltered assault on the sterile corporate feel of 70s television. You get early appearances from Chevy Chase and Richard Belzer, looking young, loose, completely unbothered by industry rules. The pacing ignores narrative completely, jumping from fake news to deeply inappropriate commercials without slowing down. It feels like you hijacked a local broadcast signal, and nobody can stop it. That raw, chaotic energy drives the entire cut. Long before sketch comedy became a studio product, this crew was already broadcasting the blueprint. Beyond the Valley of the Dolls feels like fame, glamour, vanity, and pop culture, all having a very public, nervous breakdown. 20th Century Fox was bleeding cash at the end of the 60s, so executives made a pure panic move. They handed a $900,000 budget to exploitation director Russ Meyer and a young film critic named Roger Ebert, then let them loose on the official lot. The story follows an all-girl rock band arriving in town to chase fame, only to get swallowed by an eccentric promoter and a bizarre, drug-fueled party scene. The result runs loud, gaudy, and incredibly messy. Instead of sitting outside the industry throwing rocks, it looks exactly like the studio system melting down from the inside out. There are no warnings, no distance, just straight into the excess. That massive gamble somehow pulled in $9 million, proving that if a major studio plans to lose its mind, they might as well charge admission. In the late 70s, government public service announcements treated marijuana like a fast track to ruin, and Up in Smoke showed up and laughed right in their faces. Before 1978, Hollywood only put the counterculture on screen if they were tragic victims or dangerous criminals.
Nobody had seen any movies like this before, where the stoners were the good guys and the cops were the bad guys.
We made minorities real people.
Executives felt zero confidence funding a comedy about two broke guys unknowingly driving a van made entirely out of marijuana across the border.
Which one is it, a week or a day?
It's a weekday.
You got any narcotics or marijuana in here?
Cheech and Chong brought a working-class, Mexican-American stoner and his spaced-out sidekick to the big screen. Neither suffering, neither apologizing, mostly just trying to get a band together. Mainstream audiences hadn't seen characters like this leading a studio film. They're rough around the edges, outside the system, and talking like actual people instead of cleaned-up versions. Director Lou Adler, coming out of the music world, shot the $2 million project like a loose comedy album, letting scenes drift and flow on their own rhythm. Paramount backed it for $2 million, then got nervous fast. The rough cut through them. There was talk of dumping it into drive-ins. Even the marketing didn't go the usual route. They were handing out rolling papers at rock concerts and letting word of mouth do the work. That moment with Tommy Chong lighting a joint the size of a hot dog says everything about the film's attitude.
Hijo de la chingada. Is that a joint, man?
It takes all that government propaganda and turns it into a joke without softening anything for a mainstream audience. People got it straight away, and what looked like a small gamble turned into a $44 million hit, opening the door for a whole wave of stoner comedies and proving there was a real audience for this kind of voice.
I think we're parked, man.
Studios were still trying to package rebellion into something they could control, while Cheech and Chong just laughed at them, rolled up the window, and drove off with all the cash. Everything you always wanted to know about sex from 1972 is built as a run of short sketches, each one taking a different idea and pushing it further than you expect. Woody Allen doesn't try to tie it together, he just moves on as soon as a bit has run its course, which keeps it moving. Some segments land better than others, but it never really drags. Gene Wilder shows up in one of the most memorable parts, treating a completely absurd situation like it's normal, which makes it work.
What seems to be the trouble?
I am in love with a sheep.
I beg your pardon?
It cost around $2 million to make, and brought in over $18 million, so it clearly found an audience. It's rough in places, but it captures a moment when this kind of material was wide open, and it's hard to picture it getting made the same way now. Before Bill Murray was a movie star, he was Tripper Harrison. And honestly, that performance is the whole reason this film still holds up. Meatballs could have been just another cheap summer comedy, low budget, no real plot to speak of, a bunch of kids running around a Canadian summer camp. And yeah, that's basically what it is. But Murray turns up and completely changes the atmosphere. He's loose, he's funny without trying to be funny, and there's this warmth underneath all the goofing around that sneaks up on you. The relationship he builds with Rudy, this quiet, awkward kid who doesn't fit in, gives the film a genuine emotional core. It never gets sappy about it, it just earns it quietly. Ivan Reitman directed it on a shoestring budget, and that scrappiness actually works in its favor. The independent shoot crossed the border and pulled in $43 million at the box office. Nothing feels overproduced, it just feels like summer. 45 years on, Meatballs is still the best argument that the right person in the right role can elevate almost anything. The Kentucky Fried Movie is one of the funniest movies ever made, and most people have never even heard of it. This is the film that launched John Landis, the Zucker-Abraham Zucker team, and basically invented the comedy sketch film as a feature format. 3 years before Airplane, they were already doing this. Rapid-fire parody, fake adverts, spoofs of news broadcasts, kung fu films, disaster movies, softcore TV. All of it crammed into 90 minutes with no apologies. Made for around $600,000, it went on to pull in about $7 million at the box office, which is exactly why this scrappy little thing mattered so much. There's no narrative thread holding it together, that's the point. It's more like a late-night TV channel you can't stop flipping through. Some bits don't land, but the ones that do, and there are plenty, are genuinely brilliant.
Situation. Governor! What are we going to do?
It's crude, it's anarchic, and it absolutely shouldn't work as well as it does.
Christ, did a cow shit in here?
For anyone who wants to understand where so much modern comedy actually came from, this is the starting point. Flash Gordon is one of those films that probably shouldn't exist, and you're genuinely glad it does. It started as a parody, obviously. Take Flash Gordon, make it rude, make it cheap, ship it. But somewhere along the way, the people making it got a bit too serious about it, and that's actually what saved it. The special effects crew included people who'd go on to work on Star Wars. The stop-motion monsters are legitimately impressive for a low-budget adult comedy in 1974. There's craft here that has no business being in a film like this. The tone walks this odd line between smutty and sincere. It's not trying to be smart about it, but it's not completely taking the piss either. The cast plays it reasonably straight, which makes the whole thing funnier than it has any right to be. Nobody set out to make a cult classic. They just made something genuinely strange, and it stuck. We end this list with the film that basically invented the college comedy, and nothing made since has come close to knocking it off the top. Animal House came out in 1978 on a budget of just $3 million. Universal had almost no faith in it. Low budget, largely unknown cast, directed by John Landis off the back of Kentucky Fried Movie. Nobody saw it coming. It went on to gross over $141 million worldwide, making it one of the most profitable comedies ever produced at that point. And yet the money almost feels beside the point, because everything just clicked. Belushi barely has that much screen time, but he owns every single scene he's in. The Delta House crowd feel like real people rather than comedy archetypes. Chaotic, but with a logic to them you actually root for. Harold Ramis and Doug Kenny wrote characters who felt genuinely lived in, not just vehicles for gags. It's rough in places, no question. But there's real wit running underneath it all. The parade sequence alone is one of the great comedy set pieces in American film. 50 years on, no college comedy has managed to do what this one did first. And that's not nostalgia talking. That's just the record.
Thank you, God!
If you've seen any of these, you know how far the 70s could go. There's plenty more like this on VintageVerse. Subscribe and stick around. There's always another film worth digging up.